went just to, there's a big swath of land, that Awolowo, earmarked for farm. I mean, it's still a farm settlement today. I was like, how did this is not, I'm not talking about 1, 10, 20, 100 acres. What kind of law? Then they built farm settlements. This was in the 50s. Why do I say this? Because I don't know who is listening. You just might get into politics. Who are you going to model yourself after? Excuse me. Maybe to awaken something. And even if you are not going to politics, at least have this mindset. When you are doing your business, when you are doing whatever you're doing, you are thinking, you have not to brag or anything, but there's nothing that cannot work where you're from. Whether it's farming or entertainment or tourism or, do you know how long people have been clamoring for film villages in Nigeria? Film village. I've been hearing that since the 90s. And I used to say something to myself when I was in uni. I was like, I'm going to build something. I'm going to build one. And I will still build one. Because I just didn't see any sense in asking the government to build one. I'm not saying the government should not, but because I was in school, I was like, Pana Bros, they have. There's this one that Paramount has. Then I saw the history, went back to Disney, Walt Disney, all these people. Like when they started, some of them in the 20s, the 30s, 40s, they eventually built studios. But everybody just shouting, government must, and there's a particular group that's always saying it, by the way, government must give us film. Me, I now one day stumbled on the fact that Hubert Ogunde had one in Ososa in the 1970s. For the clown saying that film production started in the village in 1990 something, it's just nonsense. He built his own studio in Ososa, is in Ijebu. Do you know today there are 3 main film studios that work? Camp Film and Resort, I think, it's called. It's in Komu. It's not your state. There is Ibrahim Chata. His father is Tupe, his mother is Yoruba, but that man is like a Yoruba man. He has another one in Oyo. There's Bolanle Austin Peters in Ekpe. Somebody says, was Baba Ogunde at the film village? Of course he did. Was he Aye or Jais? No, it wasn't Aye. I think Jais and Yomo. There's one where they had this pool where they shot the stuff. It was in Ososa. Baba Ogunde had that in the 70s. So imagine that you don't know the story. Let's assume you're in the film industry. You don't know the story of Baba Ogunde. You will not be crying and be saying, what will the government give us? What will the government give us? Oh, we are going to use VHS. You have reduced the history, so you have nothing to look back to essentially. So everything for you started in the 90s. I'm not saying those who have their history starting in the 90s that there's something wrong with it. Nothing is wrong. Whenever you wake up is your morning. I'm just saying you as a person, knowing that you have a different history, why would you jettison the past? If, for instance, Kunle Afolayan did not remember who his father was, you think he's going to have a film village? You should just be walking the street and be like, oh, I'm going to make a great movie. I'm going to be a great filmmaker. Just be doing his own and just start seeing. Sometimes just that memory is enough to trigger certain chemical reactions in your brain. You're able to think differently because you remember. You remember why, when they say things like, study about Salah, for instance, he built houses, built hotels, had cinemas. How did he do that? He was running on 35mm. He was doing celluloid, not Barok Budu, Kasari Saye Shenkoko. That mindset. I was listening to an interview last week. We were just talking. I watched an interview last week. It was of Mama Wero. Olanrewaju Azan. They've been around for a long time, Awada Keri, Ogabelo, Jide Kosoko, Aluwe, and so on and so forth. And she said something that was quite striking. She said she preferred stage to film. And I was like, yes. if you don't work in that space, you won't get it. But no, you will get it. You may not get it the way I said it, but I will explain. I said yes. You know why? Thespians, like true actors, there's something about stage productions. You get that feel. But the point is, whatever they are doing in films, they are tapping it from something in the past. Even though they are not doing stage as much as they used to do, they have to go back to it and pick something. That's what I got from one of the things I got from my interview. I'm saying that you have a lot to take from the past, whether it's in agriculture, it's in tech, it's in movies, it's in music, it's in even in church ministry. Even in church ministry. Anything. You have a lot to take from the past. And when we, like I said earlier, when we say don't forget the past, the Kinikon will always remember, will never forget. The point is not that you're looking for somebody to go and be fighting and say, I remember what you did to my father, I hate you, you made this happen to our people, all those nonsense that they're saying. Those things don't make you progress. Remember what was done in the past. Remember that in Nigeria, you are from a place where the biggest stadium in West Africa was built in your place in the 1950s to the 1960s. That's Liberty Stadium in Ibadan. The tallest building was built and commissioned in 1965. You have fantastic. You have things to look back and say, okay, this is it. So this is the point now. We have to break these records. That's the spirit. I'm not saying this to say I have better than you. That's not the point. Again, Yoruba people comparing themselves with their neighbors is actually insane. Like, you just read about some people and like, so you look at what they've done and then you surpass. And I'm saying in any industry, if you research enough, and why do you need this? There's something history does to you when it's set in contemporary times, and that's the relevance of history. And I hope we're going to do bigger stuff. Thank you very much for listening to that. You've been listening to The Forgotten Plan That Could Save Nigeria, and that's from Papa's book, the one he published in 1947. Now, we didn't really finish the thought. I'm going to read a couple more stuff before we go, but before then, there's a statement I made in that video. I think there was a little mix-up, and I think I should quickly correct it. So it is true that the Western region had an official diplomatic and administrative headquarters in London. Okay, it was called Office of the Agent General. No, all right, not High Commission. It was Office of the Agent General. It's still there, by the way, but it was in Great Portland Street, London. Now, after the army takeover, the structure was also taken over by the federal government. All right, they dismantled everything. 66, 67, took over everything, and since then, as a matter of fact, since 1969, they've been they leased the building. Actually, they're not using it as the High Commission. The one that is as High Commission is the one in Saudi Arabia. That's the mix-up I said I made. But let me finish this one. So the building that the Western region used as the administrative, as the Office of the Agent General, which was the administrative headquarters in London, was taken over by the federal government of Nigeria and subsequently leased, to different, British companies. And even right now, it's been occupied by certain companies, but the money goes to the Nigerian government. Just as you say that. Now, the one in Saudi Arabia, I said it's in Yoruba, Ile Alalaji. That's the transit camps for the pilgrims, okay? So what the Western region did was to establish these camps and housing lodges in Saudi Arabia, primarily in Jeddah and in Mecca. Okay. As soon as Toshe dissolved Kini, the federal government took over that structure as well. All right. So the one in Jeddah is used as the consulate. All right. They use it as part of the consulate. Sorry, part of the consulate general. Yeah, part of consulate of Nigeria in Saudi Arabia. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, is used today as part of Nigeria's Consulate General, Abi, you get the point. I want to use the exact word. It's Consulate General of Nigeria. That's the word I just remember now. So it's now the Consulate General of Nigeria, but it's in Jeddah. The one in Mecca that the Western region built there or owned has now been taken over by the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria. So these are the things that just get you angry sometimes, and and the mind that it took these people to create these things in the 1950s. It just makes you feel like, oh boy, see what could have been. And the reason I say that is because the regional system we had in the 1950s, it was good, but it wasn't even the best. Our wanted something more. We're going to read some of those things today. Our wanted something more. Our wanted ethno-linguistic states, not states based on geography alone. Okay? But even then, what he had, he worked with it so well that he continued and his team, what they did back in the 50s, we're still talking about it today. And believe it or not, everything he did was in 7 years. He was leader of government business from 1952. He became premier in 1954. He went to the House of Representatives in 1959. Everything he did in 7 years. And we've not stopped talking about it 67 years after. We're still talking about it in 2026. But here's the thing. If at that point he was asking for a better structure, do we even understand what he was talking about? And I'll tell you one of the reasons I'm doing this. It's not because in all this thing about these people are doing something, they're not making Nigeria grow. It's that those of us who are asking for regional government, what are we really asking for? A lot of us are asking for 1952 to 57, but the people that walked in that moment, the people that lived through that moment, are telling us that that wasn't what they were looking, forward to. That wasn't a very good system for them, and they were the ones that were actually, I've said it several times, and I'm not ashamed of it. Awolowo is an Orisha. Okay, he's a deity, right? I love that man. So here's the thing: while you have nostalgia for that past, Ipe Awolowo and they did this during the original system. Awo is now telling you, although he's not here physically, his spirit is still with us, by the way. He's now telling you that, listen, there's a better system, and that's what you should be working towards. And if you get that, you would have a developed Nigeria. And here's the thing I usually tell people when they say things like, oh, Nigeria is not doing this, Nigeria is not doing well, Nigeria should be this, Nigeria should be that. They talk as if Nigeria is an abstract idea. And a whole lump that will just become something on its own, as though there are no constituent units of the space we call Nigeria, of the country we call Nigeria, of the concept. For so many people, Nigeria is a concept, an idea. It's not the real thing. And I use this example a lot. If you look at the FIFA recognized, I hope that's the right word they use, stadium in Nigeria, is the one in Akwa Ibom. It was built by Gosu Kwabi that's the Senate president, when he was governor of Akwa Ibom State. Now, when you talk to somebody outside Nigeria, you want to go to that stadium, as far as they're concerned, it's Nigeria. So there's a stadium in Nigeria, it's FIFA accredited, I think that's the word. It's Nigeria. But it's not Nigeria. It's not like Nigeria built something. It's that a constituent unit built something, and therefore we can all call it a Nigerian thing. I said that to say that until the constituent units begin to get serious, you're not going to see a lot of growth in Nigeria as a whole. It's what like what scripture says, that what every joint supplies, that's how the body grows. Having said that, the constituent units we have right now are states. The one I was talking about is ethno-linguistic regions or states or provinces, regardless of how you call them. And what I just said right now, he said it in his book. And there are two books I want to quickly read. We're going to have another session where we'll go deep into some of these things. But I think since we're talking about this now, I might as well use this opportunity. So let's start with Voice of Courage. Okay, he delivered this speech just after leaving the prison in 1966. It was on 4th August 1966 at Ikene. I'm not going to read the entire speech. I'm just going to read part of it, and if we have time, I will then go to his other book, which for me always I don't want to say blow my brain, but it has a profound impact on me. But I'm going to read that later. Let's start with this one. All right, let's go into this. So this is Papa after he got out of prison, and this is something I think we can all learn from. As far as I'm concerned, it is to the future, a future which we can make great and glorious by a united action and in this an invincible benevolence towards one another, that I have dedicated the rest of my life. Under no circumstances will I be drawn into any sterile recriminations about the past, which in any case is gone, irretrievable and irremediable. What it was talking about the circumstances surrounding his imprisonment in the first place, and he's saying that he's not going to revisit that. Okay, so let's move on very quickly. During the past 2 years, I have devoted my life in goal to an earnest search for solutions to Nigeria's multitudinous and tantalizing problems. Again, 1966, Nigeria has been independent for 6 years at this point, okay? During the past 2 years, I have devoted my life in I have to provide, okay, towards the end of 66. It was released August 2nd, 1966. All right. From Calabar, he was brought to Lagos to meet with the head of state at the time, Yakubu Gowon, who, by the way, released him the very day he became head of state. So he became head of state on August 1st. He made sure Papa was released on August 2nd. So once he parted in that August 1st, they acted on it on August 2nd, and by August 12th, they published a gazette that we've talked about here before. So when he's saying 2 years, he's saying from 1964, okay? And we know all the stories, you know, I'm sure you can fill in the gaps. So let's just continue with the speech. During the past 2 years, I have devoted my full time in goal to an earnest search for solutions to Nigeria's multitudinous and tantalizing problems. One of my books, entitled Thoughts on Nigerian Constitution, which we're going to read later, which is devoted to a consideration of our constitutional problems, will be published by the Oxford University Press during the first week of October. In approaching our constitutional problems, I have taken pains to study and analyze the constitutional evolution of every country in the world. I'll take that slowly, so that you know the kind of father you have as a Yoruba person. Baba was in prison, Baba was doing research. Oh boy. Sorry, I'm just excited. I will read that. I want to mark something here. Okay, so let me read slowly. In approaching our constitutional problems, I have taken pains to study and analyze the constitutional evolution of every country in the world. He's not joking though. When we get to the book, you see every single country mentioned the constitutional evolution of every country and how they are set up. I make bold to say, and this will be substantiated by the contents of the book when published, that I did embark on my research with complete scientific objectivity. At the end of it, I was surprised, though pleasantly because of my previous stand in the matter, to be faced with the rationally and scientifically unassailable conclusion that only a truly federal constitution can unite Nigeria and generate harmony among its diverse racial and linguistic groups. Unfortunately, it is not recognized by the bulk of our people, including the intelligentsia and even some intellectuals, that the making of a constitution is applied political science. At this adolescent stage in the evolution of Homo sapiens, it is no longer necessary for political scientists or enlightened constitutional lawyers to grope in the dark in the search for a constitutional formula suitable for our country, or any country for that matter, or apply the rule of thumb to the making of a constitution. What is it saying? All this strange. I'll quickly explain before we continue reading. He's saying that as of 1966, that there's no need for any group of people to be groping in the dark, looking for solutions and looking for a way to come up with a constitution for any country in the world. Why is he saying this? Because you have examples already. And it's a shame that what we have done is to have a lot of trial and error, you know. We are acting as if nobody ever existed in the world before. We are the first and want to experiment, and it's painful, right? That 60 years later we're still talking about this. Okay, so we'll do everything but the right thing, and then we'll wonder why things are not working. In other words, when you look at nations that were existing at the time and look at the structures that they had, you should be able to draw inferences and say, okay, based on Kotimosika and BBB at BO, this is what will work for Nigeria, this is what will work for our place. But no, how come I'm back rather than sorry. When I read Awo's book, I get angry sometimes. Not with Awo, of course, but with others who just didn't care about, working on these things. But we have a chance in our day. It says, my own study and analysis have led me to the enunciation of certain laws or principles which must be observed in drawing up the constitution of any given country. I express the laws in the following terms. Number one, if a country is unilingual and uninational, the constitution must be unitary. I'll explain everything. Let me just read 1 to 4. Now I'll go back and explain. Again, number one, if a country is unilingual and uninational, the constitution must be unitary. Number two, if a country is unilingual or bilingual or multilingual and also consists of communities which over a period of years have developed divergent nationalities, the constitution must be federal and the constituent states must be organized on the dual basis of language and nationality. Number three, if a country is bilingual or multilingual, the constitution must be federal and the constituent states must be organized on linguistic basis. Number four, any experiment with a unitary constitution in a bilingual or multilingual or multinational country must fail in the long run. Now let's go back to explain these concepts. Number one, if a country is unilingual and uninational, the constitution must be unitary. We're saying that, say the country is unilingual, they speak only one language. So let's say England, okay, or Yoruba is one language, okay, and it's one ethnicity, it's one nation. You can afford to have a unitary system in that kind of structure. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what Oduduwa did in the 10th century AD. He created a unitary system in that city, even though there were many settlements. He brought everybody together and then they formed, and then he became the first king of everybody. There was a confederacy before him, but what he did was to up the ante by going from confederacy to proper monarchy, right? A centralized system of government within Ife. But they were all unilingual. They were uninational. You can even try it on a larger scale. Of course, you're going to have to use the Ogbon that Oduduwa use. You can even do it for Yoruba people, to be honest, but you're going to have to use the Ogbon Oduduwa use. In other words, you don't just put the power in yourself. You ensure that you break the space into, like in Ife, they call it Ogbo, quarters, and each quarters will have their own, rulers and leaders all the way to the top. Anyway, the point he's trying to say is that if the country speaks one language and they are one ethnicity, they can have a unitary system, which is a stupidity in what Iransi did in 1966. But by the way, it's not just him. It was a plan that was set in motion. Like, when I say in motion, I'm saying like in P1 was in 1951. And it was the NCNC pushing that thing. But it wasn't the NCNC gun that was pushing it. It was an ethnic agenda that was set in motion 7 years before 51 that now hijacked the party to push, that ridiculous agenda, and they eventually got it passed in 1966, 15 years after they started pushing it. Long and short, it was an Igbo agenda, okay, espoused by Zik himself. But you can't do that in a multilingual country. But let's get back to what Papa is saying. So he's saying number two, if a country is unilingual or bilingual or multilingual, in other words, also they call Abede Meji, Abede Pukpo, and also consists of communities which over a period of years have developed divergent nationalities. That over time they now have separate ethnic nationalities and identities within the same territory. He's saying that the constitution for that kind of people must be federal, and the constituent states must be organized on the dual basis of language and nationality. In other words, Thomas Feshe state from your bear. they will do it like the UK. You will have the language, you have nationality. So these are the Welsh, these are the Scots, this is Northern Ireland, and then you have England. And that is how you have a federal system in a way. Now, number 3, which is the one that concerns Nigeria. If a country is bilingual or multilingual, the constitution must be federal, and the constituent, this is where I'm going, please pay attention, and the constituent states must be organized on linguistic basis. Is Awo just pulling this thing out of a hat? No, Awo is saying this based on research. In other words, he looked at, and we're going, if we don't finish it today, I promise you we're going to go back to this thing maybe tomorrow, because we need to know what this man did so that we can help our own generation. What he's saying is, having studied all the nations of the world, once you notice that these people are different nationalities, but they're in one state, in one sovereign state, and they have different nationalities, they will always have a federal system. And please don't tell me Nigeria has a federal system. Well, we have something like a federal system. It's not exactly what it is, especially since the unitary stuff in 66. I was having a conversation with someone earlier today, and he said, if the unitary system was so bad, how come when the Northerners took over, they didn't change it? I said, because it favored them. It was something they wouldn't dare implement, right? For all the errors, for all the errors of the Northerners, right? And they made a lot. In fact, there's nobody that didn't make any mistakes anyway, including our own people. So that's natural anyway. But here's the point: for all their mistakes, they couldn't fathom the possibility of even creating a unitary system in Nigeria. The Northerners would never do it. How do I know? Go and read what Ahmadu Bello was saying from the 1950s and 1960s. As of 53, they wanted to break away. The idea of having a unitary system could only come for a person that wants to take advantage of what belongs to every other person. That's the truth. But you see, when somebody decided to bail the cat, introduce that ridiculous system to favor his own ethnicity, we have to make that very clear. That's why he did it. That's the primary reason. As a matter of fact, it took only one person, right, in the committee to give us that law. Frank Wokedi just said, okay, imagine you have a committee set up for Shekani unitary system or command unitary system. Quite only secretary, only president, only treasurer, only financial secretary, only community, only so they joke as a one-man committee to give the recommendation that Nigeria should have a unitary system. Wokedi did that. He also implemented it to favor his ethnicity. When the North got there, guess what they did? They just followed in the footsteps of the Igbos. Is it good? Of course it's not. Is it bad? You can say it's good or bad. The point is that they found a system they could exploit. Now, here's the point. Both of them are wrong, just to be clear. But it's important for us to understand what should be. What should be, again, is not that we should go back to the days of Awolowo. It's to go back to the mind of Awolowo and probe and find exactly what he had in mind as far as how Nigeria should be structured. And people will say, oh, but why are you even talking about this thing? This is 2026, nobody really cares. People do. If they don't care, we'll not have Development Commission in 2025. And I said it the other day, I have a document, and I think I've shared it before. That document was actually is a report of the 2000 and, what year was that? Okay, it was a report of the 2014 confab that was held. And this was 2014. I'm going somewhere, stay with me. One of the recommendations in that report was the establishment of development commissions across all regions in Nigeria. But here's the kicker. 1 year before that report, or 1 year before they even had that meeting, Yoruba Land or Southwest already organized their own development commission. Okay, it's called DAWN, Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. And I said from time to time we'll be discussing the details of the plan. Okay, no problem, we'll do it. DAWN Commission was in 2013. And then there was GJ, President Goodluck Jonathan, convening the confab. And then during that one, they now said they want to have development commission. It took them 11 years. Nigeria did not do anything about it until One man from the ethnicity of the people who had done commission in 2013 became president and said to implement it for all Nigeria. President Tinubu. I'm telling you that we may, I would have said we may, but I don't think we will ever have the regional system like the one we had in time past. I don't think we will ever have it. But I think if we have this mindset, if we think this way, whatever we have, we'll run it the way things should be. And there's a loophole in that document. I talked about it a long time ago, and I said I will not be saying it in public again. But or maybe when we are starting 2 in June. Let me even announce. We are starting 2 in June. 2 is TOO. Well, we started in April, to be fair. We started having prayer meeting because I'm a spiritual person. So we started praying first Sunday of April, right? We're having prayer for 2. Now, 2 will stand for 2 different things. 2 will be the people, and 2 will also be the vision. The people is the tribes of Ududua, TOO, okay? 2. And then the idea is transformation, order, and opportunities. I talked about it last week. I said I will be giving more information, but we're going to put out the forms in June. So it's the tribes of Ududua, TOO, 2. And then the focus is transformation, order, and opportunities. All right. I say that to say that the same way you had a person or you had a group of people following in the footsteps of Awolowo to create Dawn Commission in 2013, many years after independence. It's about 53 years after independence, right? Still carrying the vision that Awo had, that is shared in, the one I'm reading right now and in other books that he wrote. And nobody really cared about that in Nigeria anyway. But in 2013, they established that. And then in 2014, there was a meeting where they recommended that for everybody. And then in 2025 was eventually established. I'm saying that the idea of linguistic basis for state creation in Nigeria, it may not come the way that, but if you have this in the back of your mind, just like some of our elders came up with something in 2013, we, particularly in 2 going forward, will be coming up with things that eventually, it will become the birth of our dream. And let me tell you something, there are certain dreams you have that you will never live to see. It's just the way life is, unless you want to you accomplish great things in your lifetime, but you have dreams that your children will be the ones to fulfill. That's how life should be. Okay? Even Joel chapter 2 says your old men will dream dreams. So Awo had dreams, but Awo also did great things. So I believe that our generation's work is to fulfill some of those dreams that he had and to also now come up with new vision for our children. Okay? But we can't do all those things without knowing exactly what he was talking about. And I'm saying that because there's a lot of clamor for original system among Yoruba people today, but I can assure you we don't know what we are talking about. When I say we, I don't like making look as if I know everything. No, all of us, most of the time, we're just saying we want to go back to original system. To do what? It was that original system that caused the Wala. It was that original system that caused the Wala in 1962. Ara wọn Wala no original system yẹn ló fa gbogbo crisis in Western Region Parliament in 62 that the federal government was able to put their hands into it and scattered everything. So it wasn't a perfect system. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, it wasn't a perfect system. And when you're looking at regional system, don't stop in 59. You have to look at it all the way to 66. So the greatness that we're always talking about is 52 to 59. From 59, some great things happened. There are great things that Akintola did, to be clear. But by 62, by 63, they were that was when you now sent out to prison. It was still the original system at that point. In other words, if you have the system turning by and you don't have people turning berolon, I don't want to make it look as if people that came after him did not have the fear of God. So the best way to say it is people who don't have the kind of vision that he had for Yoruba people. And I know I'm going into many things now, but it's important to explain myself so that it doesn't look like I'm trying to, discredit anybody. Here's the point. There are people that came after our Lord. They also had great plans for Yoruba people, but their plan was mainly to ensure that Yoruba people were not left out in the sharing of the national cake. As a matter of fact, that was actually Akintola's primary goal. And there's nothing really wrong with that. Awo sees differently, again, I have a problem using past tense, so he saw differently, but he still sees differently. His own idea is not to share the national cake. His own idea is to structure the country in such a way that everybody has a piece, not just some people trying to say we are. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to this thing, it doesn't give you that developmental vibe. It's more like let's all partake in the looting, so to speak. All right. All of that to say that we're reading this because just like we had people who implemented certain things in 2013, I believe that some of us here will also help implement some things going forward. Having said that, let's go back to the book. So number one, it says if a country is unilingual and uninational, the constitution must be unitary. In other words, they speak one language, they are one people, so it's okay. Okay? Only in terms of the kind of government. I use the example of Otua. And it's very interesting that I use that example because what Otua did in the 10th century AD, more than 1,000 years before 1966, more than 1,000 years before 1966, it was what the university was trying to do for a multilingual country. Nothing could be more stupid when you're looking at the kind of system a country should run. Nothing could be more stupid. I mean, there are many stupid things, but that's a very, very stupid thing. Number two, if a country is unilingual or bilingual or multilingual, and also consists of communities which over a period of years have developed divergent nationalities, the constitution must be federal, and the constituent states must be organized on the dual basis of language and nationality. Number two, if Nigeria. So 2 and 3, if Nigeria. In other words, when you're trying to create states in Nigeria, it should not be Western region, Northern region, Eastern region, or Oyo State, Kwara State, Kano State, Edo State, Enugu State. No. The state creation should be based on the language of the people and their nationality. Right? And that would mean that you have a Yoruba state. And I know it could be shocking, it may be shocking to some people, but it's the same thing you have in Europe. It's not a big deal. Number three, if a country is bilingual or multilingual, the constitution must be federal and the constituent states must be organized on linguistic basis. Number four, any experiment with a unitary constitution in a bilingual or multilingual or multinational country must fail in the long run, just as we see in Nigeria. Let's go on. I readily concede that the former constitution had many defects, but federalism is certainly not one of them. It follows, therefore, that a step in the right direction is first of all to recognize the exact ailments of our nation. Once this is done, it should not be too difficult for us to devise appropriate remedies for them. But we must realize all things else that in approaching our problems at this juncture in our history, we must eschew any kind of partisanship, be it political or ethnical, and allow our thinking and reasoning to be guided by complete objectivity and rationality. Our hearts too must be ruled by unconquerable goodwill and irrepressible earnestness for Nigeria's continued oneness, and our aspirations must be unflinchingly directed towards normative social objectives which are scientifically oriented. And then he went on to say, in concrete terms, it is my firm belief that until we provide employment, free education from primary to university level, and health services for all our citizens, the problem of unity will continue to plague us. And in this connection, I hasten to add, sorry, I'll tell you again. And in this connection, I hasten to predict that the breaking up of Nigeria into a number of sovereign states will not only do permanent damage to the reputation of contemporary Nigerian leaders, but will usher in terrible disasters which will bedevil us and many generations to come. Fortunately, with truly scientific and limited planning, all these social objectives can be ours in the immediate future. My appeal in this connection, therefore, is for unity and scientific planning. I read this part the other day where I talked about the breakup of Nigeria, what it could lead to. And I think it's also something I should say now. I know some of you will not like it. Some of you will say, don't say it, but let us help ourselves. Our landed. Let's break it up. Let's scatter it. Let's fight it out. Where's the plan? We don't need any plan. Just destroy everything. If you try it, I can assure you of one thing. If there's any part of the country where I am certain that different people across Nigeria would rush to and want to become refugees, it would definitely be Yoruba land. People can have banter, on social media and just say all kinds of things, but the most stable part of Nigeria is Yoruba land. Seller. Now let's go to the other book he mentioned. All I'm saying is that the Oribibe called me Ogun Orififo. It would be foolhardy to say there is no headache. By the way, if you're listening and you don't understand Yoruba, what it means basically is that the solution to a headache is not to cut off your head. Okay? It's not to behead the person. It's to actually find, you get the point. Get some aspirin or get, paracetamol. The point is that you're not doing anybody any favors by saying that, oh, there's no headache, everything is perfect. No, there's a headache. But there are ways to do it. And I think that when the scientific part fails, or when people just feel tired of the whole thing, that's like, you know what, let's Dagberu. But here's the thing about Dagberu. There's a high possibility that it's going to affect us more than any other group in this country. So let's go to the part that it's a lot of work, what I'm reading right now, but I'm sure I also knew it was a lot of work when he was writing it. But we can do this politically, I believe. And like I said, it has already started. Regional system has started in Nigeria. All you have to do to understand is the news that came out last week. Southwest Development Commission has secured the license to operate railway services in the southwest, okay? Connecting 40 cities across 6 states in the region. Oyo, let's go back to DC. Actually, there is sea everywhere. There is sea in Ondo too. So from Oyo, Lagos, Ogun, Osun, Ekiti, Ondo, all states in the southwest will be connected through this license, WDCT, Tongbai, and they're going to be operating the rail tracks that have always been there and nobody's really using them. So here's the thing, regional system is back, but you have to observe to see it. All right. And now, but the only time we need this information so that we'll be able to understand. Okay, it did not happen like that though. You know what? Let's not go into this. That's not how it happened. I see your comment on YouTube, but that's not how it happened. Many of the things that people say what to do, I did happen over generations. But that's not even the conversation. Let's just move on. I'm going to go to the other book now. Thoughts on the Nigerian Constitution by Wafemi Awolowo. Now, I'm not sure we're going to finish this book, but let me advise, if you would like to read it, please go to Redomi Books on Telegram and order these books. Order Awolowo's books. I mean, we have a section just on our wall, okay? The books will be shipped to you wherever you are in the world. You should order. This is chapter 2. I want to just read the relevant portion for our discussion today because we can't really finish everything because of time. Okay. So he's saying, I mean, this chapter is about Unitarianism or federalism. Okay, the book is called Thoughts on the Nigerian Constitution, written by Papa, was published in 1966. Okay. So it says here, it must be generally agreed that the making of a constitution is not an end in itself. It's a means to the welfare and happiness of the people, the fountain of which, in a material sense, is economic prosperity. 1 second. You know what? Let me pause to explain something to someone in the comment section. I was not a confederal person. Again, unitary is not a demonic idea, and we have to be very careful not to try to whitewash history. Although it wasn't about confederacy. If it was about confederacy, the system, guys, please give me some time. I need to explain this thing because it's important. Although I did not run a confederal system, it did not. Okay, it was a unitary system through and through. Okay, the difference is that it was not an absolute monarchy. What he had was not absolute monarchy, but it wasn't confederation. Confederation was what we had before Oduduwa. And just in case, I don't know if you were here, including Obatala's people in government does not mean confederacy. See, words have meanings, okay? Words have oh boy. Words have meanings, okay? Democracy means something, confederacy means something, unitary system means something. It's not something, it's something, it's not something, it's not something, it's not something, it's not something, I have this to explain, so I'm very here's the thing. Before him, in the days of Prophet, actually, he was a committee that exists if would have the kings in the council, right? And they would choose one person to be the head of that council, or the head of all things at that particular moment. That's confederacy. Okay? Every academic book that you read about Ife will tell you about the time that Ife had a confederacy. That was the period, not Oduduwa period. I beg. The very first chairman of the confederacy was Oranfe. And it was a gerontocracy. The eldest amongst, by the way, you can read some, if you want materials, I can recommend, you can read the history of Yoruba by Jakinto, you can read Yoruba New History by Akinwumi Ogundiran. What happened really was that the person who was the leader of the confederacy was not the king of all of Ife. And that's why when people come around sometimes and say things like, oh, but there are many kings in Ife before the door. Of course, there were many kings in Ife, but there was no king of Ife until he came. He came with the concept of divine kingship. He centralized authority, unifying all the 13 settlements they lose, and became the sovereign over all of them. That's unitary system. Inclusion of, the only difference is that, I mean, what I think you're talking about when you say inclusion of Obatala, it's like saying that, okay, Tinubu as one is now president. So if he decides to, he actually did, interestingly, decided to include PDP guys. I mean, he included Nyesom Wike, right, as the minister of FCT. Wike is PDP. Does that mean that Tinubu is running the confederacy? That's what Oduduwa did. He included those who were part of the confederacy, but who were defeated, all right, in the creation of the new order. He brought them in to be part of the new order and made sure that they had a place in what they were doing, so that there's no winner takes all kind of situation, right? And then he created this environment where everybody could thrive regardless of whether you won or lost, okay? But everybody knew who won or lost, not like what Nigeria is doing with no victor, no vanquished, which is absolute nonsense. There's a victor, there's a vanquished, but the victor doesn't have the winner takes all mentality. He's able to bring other people and we're able to build a new space, which is what Oduduwa did, all right? Building that does not now make what he's doing confederacy. If it was confederacy, you're still going to have all those 13 kings having their settlements without having to defer to anybody. During the days of confederacy, each of them still maintained their autonomy. Okay? There was no king of all of them. They were each, the Obalora was Oba on his own. Oba Dio was Oba on his own. You know, Oba Lejugbe was Oba on his own. Obatala was Oba on his own. Everybody was Oba on their own. So what he did that was different was to unite them. Unity, sharing in Koto Oduduwa is centralized government. And without centralized government, there is no city I have seen. And you can check like a city to like sorry, not a city, sorry, a people that will become like a powerful force that will not have a centralized government in a whole history. And I'm taking my time to study these things. But in case you have an example, I will be willing to learn as well. Please let me know. I've not seen any, right, that became very powerful in the world that didn't have centralized governance. That's why when people say things like, oh, we didn't have centralized governments because we're happy people, it's just a joke. It just means that you did not evolve to that point. That's the truth. When it comes to Confederacy, it stopped as soon as Odua took over, and everything changed. And then, sorry, Mr. Adrian says, you are correct. What Odua did was limited to Ife, but during his lifetime, they did not ask the folks that left Ife to bring other Yoruba small kingdom or the Ife kingdom. No. So that's a different thing. Oh boy, why did I bring Ife? Now that I brought Ife, I think the matter is going somewhere else. So here's the thing. No, let's not go deep into Ife history because I would love to dedicate time just for it. But I'll say this: Ife, what Odudua did became the model for all Yoruba states, for all Yoruba people. For the most part, just like every other group, we had settlements and we had kings. Okay, but okay, so you have autonomy, but you're in a small space. If you read the story of Afonja, what Afonja was trying to do in the 19th century, was it 19th? Yeah. What he was trying to do was actually similar to what Odudua did, to what Oronyo did, to what Kukuku did. Oronyo did it in Oyo, Kuku did it in Ondo, Osemawe did it in Agorwe, was in Ijebu as well, Obanta. It was done all over Yoruba land. The idea basically is you have established settlements, right? But Onikaku, oh dear. All right, someone is writing something on YouTube, on TikTok. We'll talk about that later. It's actually very sad. It actually got me off for a bit, but we'll come back to that later. Anyway, where was I? So nǹkan tó yàtọ̀ ni pé èèyàn kan máa wá pé ó lè jẹ́jà, ó lè jẹ́ pé ó lè jẹ́ ọ̀rọ̀ àsọyé. Let's have this thing where we can build something together. Why? So you can take advantage of opportunities around you. There are things you can't do as small units, but when you have it as a big unit, you can protect yourself, you can take advantage of the land, you can expand your space, and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's what happened, with Odudua, and also with every Yoruba town is using the model from Ife. And there's nothing wrong with that. After all, that's our home. Okay? Where else are you going to copy from if you're not copying from home? So there's nothing wrong with that. Then the other thing you said, so the centralized government was only for Ife and not all the Yoruba forests. I knew that there were other Yoruba land, other Yoruba small Elu. Okay, I think your argument is you're arguing like Odua living in 2026. You have to move away from what you're saying. It's what you're saying is different. It's not about him encouraging individual kingdom. It wasn't the father of all the kingdoms. Man, I have to move on. I think your argument is, so let me advise. If you're discussing history, you have to understand the context, right, of the person you're discussing, the historical figure you're discussing. You can't say things like he allowed other Yoruba people to exist. What do you mean allowed? There was not that kind of... You know what? Let's just move away, I beg. Let's just move away. It's not about allowing or not allowing. It's about you consolidate power and then eventually you begin to move into spaces. Yoruba land is not Abule, and there was no telephone, there was no cars, there were no cars, there was no airplane. How many years do you think would have taken to be able to do all of those things they are suggesting? And you find this in every culture, okay? You see it in Greece, for instance. Alexander the Great did something similar. You can try to consolidate if you want, but that's not even what you're saying has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. So please, let me just move away from it, I beg, because it's distracting me, I meant to say. Let's go back to the book. Where were we? Federalism, a necessity. Aulo is writing on thoughts on Nigerian constitution. I'll just read a bit of it and we'll close. It must be generally agreed that the making of a constitution is not an end in itself. It is a means to the welfare and happiness of the people, the fountain of which, in a material sense, is economic prosperity. Of all the factors which conduce to the economic prosperity, and again, in a material sense, the greatness of a nation and its people, the most important is political stability. Without it, natural resources, manpower, and capital, whatever their quantity and quality, plus technical knowledge, will avail very little. I'm just going to jump very quickly to the part where I talk about those examples. There are altogether 6 continents in the world: Africa, North America, South America, Asia, Australasia, and Europe. We will take the continents one by one, but not in the order in which we have mentioned them. In treating the countries in each continent, think about the kind of mental work, all the continents in the world, every country in every continent, to understand the structures that they had in their countries. So it says here, we will take the continents one by one, but not in the order in which we have mentioned them. In treating the countries in each continent, we will ignore all the colonial and trust territories, and so on and so forth. Let's just go very fast. For all theoretical and practical purposes, a colonial or trust territory cannot, in our view, be said to be a rational constitution. Besides, of the 3.135 million people in the world, only about 24 million, 0.76%, live in dependencies. Dependencies, colonial trust, it's a totally different conversation. But we're talking about countries themselves. So let us begin this global mental excursion with the continent of North America. I think we're only going to talk about North America today. We'll talk about others later. The 3 leading countries there have a federal constitution. They are the United States of America, Mexico, and Canada. The United States was the first country in the world to have a federal constitution, and Canada and Mexico, its immediate neighbors to the north and south respectively, followed in its footsteps. What is now known as the United States of America was colonized by England in the 17th century through some of the nationals who had emigrated there. The emigrations took place in groups at different times and for different reasons, which in the main were religious and economic. On the arrival in the new territory, each group of immigrants chose a different area for its permanent settlement, and by force of arms or without resistance, appropriated to the indefeasible ownership of its members sufficient parcels of land for use and cultivation. I'm going to jump paragraphs because of time. Again, if you get this book, you'll be able to read everything. I'm just going to jump some. Everything he's saying here is very important, but there were 13 states which in 1776 were confronted with the problem of reconciling the passionate desire for independent regional government with the equally passionate desire for an all-embracing and uniting central government. At first, they settled for confederalism, but many American men of affairs soon discovered that this arrangement was too weak at the center and too strong at the circumference. A public debate ensued. It was inspired by George Washington and conducted by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, the side of federalism. And in 1787, a new constitution was evolved, which with some amendments has remained till this day as a core found and culture. The story of Canada is somewhat different. Please pay attention to this Canadian thing. America is a bit straightforward. Canada is a little complex. The story of Canada is somewhat different. In 1605 and 1608, respectively, the French founded Port Royal, now Annapolis Royal, in Nova Scotia and Quebec. Both of these settlements became British possessions during the first 60 years of the 18th century. The one by the cession of Nova Scotia, of which it formed a part of the other by conquest. After the American Declaration of Independence, a very large number of American loyalists crossed the frontiers into Canada and settled in Ontario, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, all of which were under, I think he meant to say all of which were under British colonial administration. After the arrival of this English-speaking these English-speaking settlers, a series of constitutional experiments began, which lasted from 1791 to 1867. At first, Canada, like Nigeria, was administered as two separate units, Upper Canada and Lower Canada, each with its own governor and legislative assembly. The French settlers in Quebec bitterly resented the presence of the British immigrants who were grouped in Lower Canada with them. Then, following Lord Durham's report of 1839, the two units were amalgamated under a unitary government in 1840. Wait though, those people that came up with unitary system in Nigeria in 1966, did they not read books? They were not thinking, no. Because I can hear about these examples and still make that kind of rubbish. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Where were we? The French settlers in Quebec bitterly resented the presence of the British immigrants who were grouped in Lower Canada with them. Then, following Lord Durham's report of 1839, the two units were amalgamated under a unitary government in 1840. Because of the relentless agitation for autonomy on the part of the French-speaking Canadians, this experiment was abandoned in 1867 when the federal constitution, under which the country has been peacefully governed since, was introduced. In other words, they introduced federal system in 1867. America introduced federal system in 1787. There were only 4 provinces in existence in 1867, namely Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. The 2 factors in favor of federalism were linguistic and geographical. Both English and French are official languages in Canada. In other words, you can have more than one official language. In Yoruba land, the official language should be, and in Nigeria should be Nigerian, English, since of English, of colonize plus local languages. The Aborigines of Mexico were Indians. Okay, let's leave Mexico for it because Mexico is long. I don't want to go beyond French today. I just want to stop in Mexico. The linguistic factor was 1957. Okay, let's just stay with Canada because of time, please. It's almost 7. Here's the point. Because you had English and French in Canada, the idea of unitary system did not work, so they had to come up with a federal system. I said we're going to read everything in North America, B. Let me stand by my word. Let's just finish North America. The Aborigines of Mexico were Indians, or the Native Americans, who spoke about half a dozen different languages. You know what? I think this is going to be very interesting. The Aborigines of Mexico were Indians who spoke about half a dozen different languages. These Indians, or like I said, Native Americans, were said to be highly civilized. They had lived in the territory now known as Mexico for several centuries before Christ, up to the early part of the 16th century, when they were conquered and their territory colonized by the Spanish, who, in the administration of their new subject, introduced a novelty into colonialism. Unlike the English and French in America and Canada, they pursued a policy of total assimilation and integration of both Spanish and Indian cultures. The Spaniards intermarried freely with the Indians, with the result that today, more than 60%, today being 1966, more than 60% of the 37.25 million Mexicans are mestizos. That is, descendants of mixed marriages between Spanish settlers and the Indian Aborigines. Of this same population, about 1.25 million, that's 1,250,000 people, speak Spanish and Indian languages, was from early 16th century to 1821. Thereafter, it passed through a succession of US and French rule before it became an independent republic in 1867. In 1857, however, it adopted a federal constitution which was reenacted with amendments in 1917 and remains in force till this day. Under the Spanish administration, followed by the United States and French, Mexico was governed under a unitary system, but the whole territory was divided into provinces, each of which enjoyed a high degree of autonomy in respect of functions devolved upon it by the central government. When the time came, therefore, for the Mexicans to fashion their own constitution, they opted for a federal constitution. The boundaries of the original 28 states followed those of the old provincial units. The decisive factor here was divergence of nationality, which had developed over a period of about 3 centuries, reinforced by geographical and economic dissimilarities. The linguistic factor was in 1857 and still is inoperative because the Indian-speaking minorities, unlike the French-speaking Canadians of Quebec, are not territorially concentrated. They inhabit different parts of the country, which still persist, are fast losing such of the linguistic and ethnic traits as remain. Let's just quickly explain that before we leave. So here's the thing. The Spanish conquerors or colonial government had a different idea of how to rule their colonies, different from how the British, or even the French did theirs. What they did, and they did the same thing in Argentina, by the way, they mixed with the local population and created a new breed, so to speak, a new race of people who you will call them half-caste, or some people call them mulattoes, but in this case, they are mestizos. Now, here's the thing. I only saw it, they look go. The people who can still speak the indigenous languages at the time in 66 were only about 1 million, or about 1.2 million people, 1,250,000 people thereabout. But the folks who could only speak Spanish were 35 million. Okay? That's because of the way they mixed. But here's the kicker. Even though most of them could speak English, the differences were still there. So when it was time to create states, what they used was, number one, divergence of nationality. In other words, they were speaking the same Spanish, but they were different people. Okay? They still held on to some other cultural things apart from the language. So they had divergence of nationality, which had developed over a period of about 3 centuries, reinforced by geographical and economic dissimilarities. And that's actually where I want to stop. So for Canada, it was linguistics, it was language. French folks in Quebec did not want to be with the people speaking English, which is still what happens in Canada till today. In fact, right now. Okay. But for Mexico, it was about nationality. For Nigeria, it would be about nationality and language. All right. But one word I like in this particular stuff we just read is the word dissimilarity. One of the major problems I think Nigeria has is this thing where they're always shouting unity, 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 unity. We sing like kids who have no idea what the rhymes mean. Just like nursery rhyme, unity, unity. Countries don't just build on unity, they also build on differences. We are not the same. And there's no problem with that. There's nothing wrong with that. We are different. We have different visions, different views of the world, different world views, different value systems. We are different. And so when we want to build a country that will work, you will build based on those differences rather than be shouting unity, unity, unity. Because think about it, this is 2026. We've had independence for 66 years. How united are we? You follow the natural grain. You follow, natural order of things. And that's what federalism really does. Not to create states based on geography, but to create states based on real issues. Because geography is not enough to determine who you are as a person. I mean, it has its place, but deeper than geography is culture. Is your ethnic nationality, because the nationality will determine the culture, your worldview, your value system, and so on and so forth. Nigeria should be structured based on our differences. And that's actually how we can unite. Now, it sounds like an oxymoron. I know it sounds counterintuitive or counterproductive, but that's actually how nations are built. We've only read about 3, United States of America, Canada, and Mexico. We did this for all continents, so we're going to read more some other time. We're going to be here again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Now, some of the things we're doing will sound boring, but trust me, we need to know this thing so that we can all be prepared. Even if what you are doing is to sell something and you have this mindset, you say it as a Yoruba person in Nigeria. And like I said earlier, the two are not mutually exclusive. You know, there are people who say things like, if you're really Yoruba, you should not be talking about Nigeria. I play the Nigerian anthem here every day, just as I play Yoruba anthem every day. They are not mutually exclusive in my own mind, okay? And I've said it several times, and I'll keep saying it. I'm a father, I'm also a son. And both roles are not mutually exclusive. The only thing you think about is priority, not exclusivity. Okay? You can't stop being a father because now you are a son. Also, you can't stop being a son to your parents because you're not the father to your children. And you can't say, I want to choose one. I don't think that's how people think very simplistic when they come up with things like, you have to pick one. It's ridiculous. You know, even if you say, I'm not Nigerian, West African. So you can be many things at the same time. The question is about priority, right? If you want to grow, if you want Nigeria to work, the ethnicities have to work. Why? Because the ethnicities are actually, if you really think about it, they're the constituent units of the country. If they work, the nation works. People think of states and capital. For Yoruba people, states are important, but it's beyond states. And that's why yesterday we're discussing what happened in Oyo State. And the title I was intentional about, they said the security situation in Yoruba land. Someone came in earlier and talked about what's happening in Ekiti. That affects me as much as it affects an Ekiti person. Because it's not about state and capital. It's not about. Sorry, I was just joking, but I should say, Abia Umaya Adamawa Yola Anambra Oka. I remember one school close to. There's a place I was staying on the mainland once like that. That woman had a school. She used to teach children. She said, "Why did they call it flower?" Quara figurine. I was like, I thought it was Ilori. What was the figurine? We've seen like Ilori. It's not sound like figurine. Quara figurine. Adama. Okay. Oh God, I want to change that capital. Anyway, what I'm saying basically is, jokes aside, is that it's beyond states and capital towns, and it's a collective kind of thinking, right? It's Yoruba. So, so once you hear that something's affecting one, it's affecting all of us. That's actually how we are structured. Every other thing we are doing is unnatural. We are forcing ourselves to try and create some funny unity. That's why it does us a kind of way when we hear that Onakalusi in Oshodi Solo decided to use 24 out of 29 slots for Igbo people. And in his mind, he's like, I will not all want Nigeria. But he knows in his mind that what he's doing is ethnic favor. His favoritism is nepotism. But we're telling you, I will not want Nigeria, which makes absolutely no sense because Nigeria does not remove the ancestral connections that people have with the land. So I'm saying that all I've learned today is that the plan that can save Nigeria, a major plan that can save this country, is understanding that we have to reconfigure the country. Now, it may not happen, like I said, the way it was. It will not even happen like that. Let me not lie to you. I don't think it will ever become like what we used to have in the past. But that mindset is important as we move into the next phase of our life as a country and as Yoruba people. When you see what's happening in SWDC, when we're talking about the regional problems we're having, particularly with security in the last few days, you also have to think in that direction. If you are thinking that way, I believe personally that we're going to have homegrown solutions. We have a lot of challenges in Yoruba land, but who's to say that you are not the ones that you particularly will not be the one to help us with the security challenge or with economic challenge or whatever thing you alone if you're causing and there is no way on this earth that not one person, at least one person will have a solution that can help Nigeria. But you have to think regionally first. And they capture Ile Yoruba. But if we capture Nigeria, flutter wave, we're shouting flutter waves all over the place right now. You have to succeed in Lagos. All right. And of course, it's spread. So I'm saying that, a lot of things that will happen, we have to think that way. We have to think regionally. We have to think as a people, and we don't have to jettison Nigeria in that process. It doesn't mean that you have to take one or the other. You can be both. All right. And I hope this has helped. We just listened to Awolowo. Papa wrote that book. The first book we read earlier was in 1947, Path to Nigerian Freedom. We read 3 books today. Path to Nigerian Freedom, published in 1947. We read Voice of Courage, which is a collection of his speeches, but we read the speech that was delivered on August 4, 1966 at Ikene. And we also read another book called Thoughts on the Nigerian Constitution, again by Papa Wafemi Awolowo, also published in 1966. If you'd like to get these books, please check out Reading Books. I'm telling us to get this book because I think it's going to help us think in a different way. If you can be on the same wavelength as Awo, I think we're going to change the world. I believe so. Okay. You just have multiplicity of Awos with humility and strategy. We will do great things. All right. Thank you very much for listening to our session today. Unlike yesterday, we're not going to bring people up, different. We're just going to listen to Papa. And I read Papa and try to explain Papa. Tomorrow we'll bring people up. We have to run out because it's already past 7. And I hope you had a great time. Someone says they were not bored. Anything we do to secure the future of generations after us is never boring. Mr. Watunde, thank you for that comment. It says we're enjoying it. It's not boring, sir. Thank you. I always say that because I know that, it's easier to chat, than to read. But reading is also part of it. We have to read. How else do we get the ideas from these great men? We have to read their books. And interestingly, because of our sessions, I spent hours just trying to find videos. There's no long form video of our that I could find. Okay. I mean, when I was in the British Archives, I was looking everywhere. I don't know if they digitized the stuff from WNTV, WNBS, all those recordings. I found short clips, but no long form clip, which is quite sad. It would have been nice to have, all those speeches in video forms. But what we have books, okay? And what we'll do, we'll read the books. And even if you can't read, maybe because you're busy, you're working, that shouldn't stop you, shall. But let's say you have a legitimate excuse, we'll try to read it here. So we'll all listen to the books being read. And I hope that this will spark something in us and help us to find solutions to the problems in our land. But again, we need to understand that regionalism, in our law's perspective, is not what he practiced between 52 and 57. What he wanted, which he wrote about, whether it was in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and we have books from all those periods. What he always talked about was was states based on ethnicity and linguistics. And that's not what we had. And I think we're very close to it right now. We're very, very close to it, especially with what we have with SWDC. It may not look like it, but if you look very closely, you'll see the answer there. And I hope that we'll all be able to contribute our own quota to the development of Yoruba land and of Nigeria at large. Thank you very much. Mr. Concilium says, any words for Gowon and his new book? I want to read that book first. I want to see there's a difference between the book, and the one that was published in the 1980s by J. Sawelago. So there was a biography. There is a biography that Gowon was very, very involved in, right? It's called Gowon, the biography of a soldier statesman, which I've read. I think is a fantastic book. It was written by J. Sawelago, but Gowon was not just quoted, it was interviewed and so number one, I'd like to know what is the difference, what new thing is saying in this particular book that he hadn't said before. It would be nice to see it. So I called our supplier earlier today, but we couldn't talk before I came online. I called to know if we can get copies of those books. I think we'll get those books on Readable Books very soon. It would be nice to read it. People have been saying all kinds of things. There are some snippets. Considium says he was the longest serving head of state. Yes, 9 years. And to be honest, I don't think it's a good thing. Because he was promised promising the country how he would hand over power to the civilian. Our left him in 71. There's a letter, maybe we're going to do it some other time. There's a letter Awo wrote to him. There's the one that he wrote to Awo. I have both. I mean, there was mutual respect, very great mind. But it should have left power. Although, and this is something that a lot of people don't talk about in history, there was actually a group of people who were telling him at the point that he should become a civilian head of state in this country. That was in the early 70s. He was there to 75 from 1966. It was Murtala Mohammed who then removed him. It wasn't even at home when they removed him. It was in I think it was this OAU summit when they told him that what's a yellow year. So yeah, it was there for 9 years. I don't know what it was. I mean, that man, I like him, so I'm always very careful. I like him because he was very young. Was very young. He was very young. The man was a bachelor when he became head of state. He was very young and naive. But I think he did his best. But he shouldn't have stayed for 10 years. He should have, had a transition max 3-4 years. By 1972, 72 is going to take Kweju. Okay, yes, let's say there was a war to 1970. So another 2 or 3 years, 73, just hand over and, get out of the way would have been better. But, I mean, it is what it is. So, okay, someone said it was not. Yes, it was in Addis Ababa. Yes, it was attending an OAU conference. And I think we have a video somewhere where it was told, and his demeanor, after he learned that he had been outed, he had been removed from power, and then eventually he moved to the UK. I think he went back to school. I mean, he's done well for himself. Some people, no matter what he says, and this is the funny thing, I've been reading. So here's the thing: I've been reading comments about the fact that he wrote a book. I've not really read the book, and I like to read the book before I talk about it. And the usual, and that when I say be permanent, it's not because it's a good thing, or it's because it's a waste of time to try to change people's minds at this point. Let me not say that way. I think that sounds very pessimistic. Most people in the Southeast will not change their mind. Most people in the Southeast will not change their mind, no matter what you write. Books have been written at least since the 1970s on this matter. Different, they don't care. In fact, what am I saying? Since the 1960s, there was a time I was talking a lot about Ojuku's Rebellion and World Opinion, the book by Neil Graham Douglas. It was published in 1968. By the way, we have that book on our Telegram channel. It's free of charge, so you can get it if you want. It's a very, very good book. It's short. It's a small book, by the way. It's small, but it's small but mighty. So if you like it, I think you should get it. Just, it's a very good book. So what I'm trying to say is that imagine they've been writing since the 1960s about the real issue of about what really happened. Different authors. We have books from the 60s, from the 70s, from the 80s, even in the 90s. They don't care. They don't care. Gowon is like a devil to them. Meanwhile, if one day we'll talk about this, I'll find a way to get the book. Maybe the way they just sorry, I don't know what happened. I think the audio was failing, Abi. I think it's raining, so it's been affecting, and then I think the app also just pushed out the account off. I don't know why. Anyway, I was just saying that, you know, it's such a shame the way people, you know, were insulting him because he wrote a book that they would never read, by the way, because I mean, who cares? Who reads? But we will read. All of us will read together. Like I said, even if you're busy, you can't get the book. You should get the book, by the way. Once we get it, I'll tell you how you can. I'll tell you once we have it already, the books. But the truth of the matter is that they will still insult him, no matter what he says. You know. But if you ask me, it did his best. The only thing I have against there are two things I have against Gowon. If I meet him, I'll probably ask him about it. I won't. If I meet him, I will not accuse him. I'll just ask him two questions. I'll ask him questions about those two events. Number one, okay, I actually know why. Let me not lie. This one, I will tell him he shouldn't have done it. No victor, no vanquished was unnecessary, and it was counterproductive. Okay, that's one mistake he made. The second one was staying too long in power. Staying too long. It was there for too long. And it would have made sense if he was trying to become a Lee Kuan Yew, but he didn't have the capacity to be a Lee Kuan Yew. He was a young man who knew very little about governance. So this is not Lee Kuan Yew who trained and prepared himself. Lee Kuan Yew will be comparable to Awolowo. You can't compare Gowon to Lee Kuan Yew or to Awo. You don't have enough understanding of politics. You just got in there because of a coup that you were not even a part of, right? And they just got in there. You don't understand governance that much, right? Thankfully, it was, and by the way, all props to Awo. The entire period of the war, it was because of Awo that Nigeria did not get in trouble. Do you know that we didn't borrow a single dime throughout the war? Nigeria didn't borrow anything. We owed nobody, and the economy was growing very strong. The economy was actually the strongest during the war period. You know. So those are the only two things I have against him. But I think he was a great man. I mean, he is a great man, and there's nobody without fault. You can't. It's not because of it. Some people make mistakes. Some people are just terrible human beings. I won't tell you the examples of terrible human. Terrible human beings are people that they just moved by emotion. By ego, ambition. Those ones, they didn't make any mistakes. They were designed. They wanted to just destroy everybody's lives before their own. Those ones I have no. But Gowon made mistakes. Is human. I don't know why people are just. Everybody be alright. I'm reading comments because if we come up, we are going to spend more time. But let me just read one or two comments before we go. Greater Me says their mind is made up already. You're very correct. The day it was discovered, I mean, I don't know why they don't know. These buruburu, they are going all over the place. The day they discover exactly what that man did, they will understand why he never won an election since 1982. And young people should ask the question: how can a person who is so loved, so called, so to speak, they say they love him, he's a hero, is all of these things. How come he never won an election from 1982 up to 2003? How come he did not win? He was trying to be a senator, then later wanted to become president, and how come he didn't win a Senate seat? Forget presidency for a second. That will require other regions, Abi. You have to have 2/3 in other places and all. Okay, yeah. Senate is a local election, so to speak. How come Ojukwu did not win a Senate seat? The answer is simple. The older ones knew that he messed up their lives. That's the answer. It's the younger ones that are shouting all over the place. They knew what he did. There's a video, one day I'll play it, where some of the elders were talking about, oh boy, they have no respect for him. I mean, think about it. If he was so great and so kiniko, how come he never won a Senate seat? It's a very good question. He didn't win. One election could win throughout his lifetime. The person who ran away in 1970, right, insulting the North and Yoruba people, Returns in 1982, but they decided to tell their children that they are victims of everybody. So the children hate everybody, but the real person will put them in trouble. That's their family's problem. May God help them. May God help everybody. Everybody gets home for body. May God help them. It's just ridiculous. So only to join Shehu Shagari's party, the same party of the people he insulted before the war and during the war and after the war. He joined their party. Listen, the older people in Igbo felt betrayed. When I say the older people, I'm talking about the ones who were educated. Most of these people that are disturbing the peace all over the place, their parents were the ones who were the cannon fodder. And it's an unfortunate thing, right? There's nothing to, it's not, I'm not gloating, but their parents were the ones who were just used and dumped. Ojukwu just took pictures of their parents and used it and told their parents nonsense, and the parents believed it because, of course, you can't blame them, by the way. But you see, the people that actually pushed the propaganda, some of them held on to propaganda till they died, people like Ajebe, but many of them, when it was time to vote, they did not vote for Ojukwu because they knew what he did. He left them to die, ran away, and then returned only to join the same people he was fighting. New Era says, many of those insulting Gowon would never have been born if not for him. God bless you, sir. Mr. Okeoye says, they never forgive Awolowo or Gowon. Without the two, I think they would win the war. They annex the whole of South. Yes, you're right. You're right. You're right. And that's the thing. The hate that Igbos have for Awo is not even so. It's a two. I mean, what's the word now? It's from two perspectives. Number one was political, influenced by Zeke, which is politics. This one that they have based on what Ojukwu said is just stupidity, because Ojukwu just give them. And there was one thing that Awo did that Ojukwu never really got over. Although, to his credit, when Papa passed, he said that Awolowo was the best president Nigeria never had. However, when Papa was alive, in 1983, Awo was so angry. When they asked Awo that, well, it wasn't angry, it was the truth. When they asked Awo why Igbos hated him, Awo said Igbos didn't hate him. That it was just certain people who have lied to Igbos about him. This was in 1983 during the presidential election campaign. He said it was certain people that have been lying to them, and that many of them, they are redeemable. But Ojukwu was irredeemable. These were Papa's own words. 1983. He said Ojukwu was irredeemable. Would you believe if I told you that Awo and the rest of them were still trying to reach out to him even while he was in Côte d'Ivoire? While he was in exile. Only for him to return to be insulting Awo. But there was one thing that Awo did that Ojukwu never really got over. And that was a beautiful, beautiful move, by the way. Very strategic. See, Ojukwu had stolen about 2.5 million pounds from Central Bank in Benin. He also stole money from Port Harcourt. I mean, when I say he, I'm saying his people. They stole from Port Harcourt and from Calabar. They stole in central banks and in post offices, costed away a lot of money. Noticed that was happening. He reached out to the head of state, Gowon, and one other person, and they kept it very, hush hush. That they were going to change the design of the Naira. Do it. Like sharp. So they announced abruptly, and Ojukwu suddenly discovered that all the money he had stolen, he couldn't use it to buy everything I'm saying to you right now. You find it in a book by John de St. Joy. It's called The Nigerian Civil War. He discovered that all the money he had stolen to buy guns and weapons and everything, he would not be able to use the money. So what did he do? He sent his people abroad. They were carrying suitcases of money all across major cities across the world, in London, in New York, in Barcelona, in Madrid, in different parts of the world. We're trying to exchange Naira because of course they're not going to bring the money to Nigeria. They want to quickly convert the currency before the deadline, but they're not going to bring the money directly to Nigeria. So they took the money abroad. As a matter of fact, at the end, when the whole thing expired, suitcases. You know what? Let me read something to you. Let me read something to you. Let's use this as Jara. It may take me a while, Sha, because I have to now find the page. I like history that has to do with that period because they've lied to us about that period, and it's not fair. By the time it was done, Ojukwu. So by the time everybody was done, Ojukwu had lost about 30 million. That was the pain. It's actually the most Guinea was, and I will talk about it in the 1983 presidential election. That Ojukwu himself admitted that the change of currency was the single move that defeated his plan, and this was end of 1967. Give me a second. Let me find it for you guys. Oh boy. So here's the thing. I hope I can quickly find it. That thing disrupted his plans and all the money. So by the time the going to use to buy weapons, forgive Owl for that. By the time they were done, they had suitcases full of money all across, major cities in Europe. Mumbo, I'm looking for the page, Neo, and I will find it. And that'll probably be how we're going to end today's session. I hope you've had a great time. Okay. Motifed close. During the invasion of Midwest region, Ojuku's forces seized approximately 2 million, okay, it was 2 million, not 2.5, 2 million pounds from the vault of the central bank in Benin. Umbo. The Nigerian Civil War, okay, yeah, I found it. The Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. I'm just going to read some pages to you. Yeah, I was right. It was 67 into 1968. So they changed that currency in January of 1968. Let's do this very quickly. Okay. Gowon opened the new year 1968. This is the Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. Gowon opened the new year 1968 with a rash prediction. The war would be over and Nigeria won again by the end of March. But then, in one of the most effective federal moves of the conflict, it was announced that the Nigerian currency was to be changed. A mere 19 days was given for the operation, which had been kept a closely guarded secret, and took the Biafrans completely by surprise. The Biafran government had been planning to issue its own currency eventually, but was not prepared for this sudden development. By the way, when they eventually issued their currency, the plan was to use Naira as the base of that currency because there was no base for any. Some people said pound because Nigerian pound because it was like currency made based on emotions. But let's just continue reading. So yeah, Nigeria changed the currency. A mere 19 days was given for the operation, which had been kept a closely guarded secret, and took the Biafrans completely by surprise. The Biafran government had been planning to issue its own currency eventually, but was not prepared for this sudden development. Overnight, all Biafra's carefully husbanded reserves, foreign exchange, of course, was not affected, but the other reserves were threatened with being reduced to worthless scraps of paper. The Biafran government mounted a panic operation, offloading Nigerian currency notes at rock bottom prices to anyone who would take them. Inevitably, with such a short deadline, things went wrong. Mysterious men carrying bulging suitcases stuffed with Nigerian money fanned out to the world's currency centers. Some were successful, but more were not, and were either caught or, having missed the deadline, simply dumped the now worthless notes. Nigerian currency worth £230,000 was found in 7 abandoned suitcases at London Airport a day after the issue of the new notes. £300,000 turned up in Rome
4 months later, and £700,000 was impounded by the Togolese authorities when an unmarked aircraft coming from Biafra landed to refuel at Lomé. Even after the war was over, the occasional hoard of old notes continued to surface. The Biafran government is reliably estimated to have lost £30 million altogether. And although it managed to put its own currency efficiently and rapidly into circulation, the operation dealt a massive blow at the country's financial resources. That singular act was one of the reasons Ojukwu hates Awo, or at least hated him since his death. Isu is late now. If you read, we're going to have to go now, but if you read Awolowo's skinny, you will see how it was Papa. I would say that it was that particular decision that actually, I'd like to read this on camera so I can put the video out, because it's good to say these things. So I will say this thing again some other time. So everybody will be all right. So you're right to say that they hate Awolowo. Yeah, that's their business, and they hate Gowon. Between Awo and Gowon, if you know how much went into trying to help the East Central state, which is the present-day Southeastern state, how much they put in there to help them, massive amounts of money. Massive. There was a 5 million naira, there was 3.5 million pounds, there was money in the African Continental Bank, there was money in Cooperative Bank of Eastern Nigeria, and that money was given so that they can loan it out to Igbo people. They're always talking about £20, which was a gift, but beyond that, there was something else that was given. Maybe before this week runs out, we'll have a session where I'll be responding to a particular video that a young girl made asking for reparations in Nigeria. Absolute nonsense. Nobody owes anybody anything in this country. Only God. God is the only one we're looking up to, and may God favor all of us in Jesus' name. All right. Flower says, if they tell you to read some books, you won't. There were Igbos in the West. What's this? What's this? Madam Bosun says that's what they call wisdom surpasses power. Yes, so Ogbon Jagbara law. Ogbon Jagbara law. Flower. Okay, so let's do this way, Flower. I'm going to have a session on the £20 stuff. If not tomorrow, maybe on Thursday. And I mean before the end of this week, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, one of those days, but we'll make sure I actually talk about it. £20 was a gift. It's called an ex gratia payment. Ex gratia payment is a product of magnanimity. Nobody owed your parents anything. No, you are quite young to be your grandparents. Nobody owed the people anything. It was a gift. There was a war in America, the Civil War, between the Confederates and the North and South. When the Confederates lost, they didn't get a dime, not a cent, from the American government. As a matter of fact, it became illegal to even help in terms of give back money to folks who did that based on their losses. So, to be clear, what Nigeria did, again, this is Awo was just too magnanimous. It was a gift, just to be clear, Flower. It was, and everywhere in the world, when people give you something, you thank them for it. Nigeria is the only place where you give somebody something, the person is telling you, how come this is all you have given me? Like, I didn't owe you that. I just gave it to you out of my benevolence. It was a gift. And you can read any book on this matter, by the way. Don't take my word for it. You most likely see the phrase ex gratia payment. Ex gratia payment. It's a gift. And it wasn't just given to people. There were people who got their monies back. I'll talk about this before the week runs out. I don't know what day I'll be able to come on camera, but I'm going to talk about it. I'll play you videos. People whose parents got their monies back. The man who even made this statement I'm just saying right now, his name is John Nyanwodo. He eventually became the Governor General of Ohaneze Ndigbo. So I'm not talking about some some random person who we can trace. You will know that we can even research if you like. You guys should be grateful. Nigeria is very good to the Igbos. I don't think the Igbos actually know how good they have it. No, but I'm not saying Nigeria could not have done better. I mean, Nigeria can do better by everybody. Like, I mean, it's not like it's a perfect structure or anything, but to not even be able to acknowledge the good that was done, the money that was put inside Azikiwe's bank for Igbo people, which they took as loans and used to start up their businesses, money that was put inside CBN, Cooperative Bank of Eastern Nigeria, that was put in there by the federal government so that Igbo people could take loans, and they took the money. Someone says, why not just give everybody back what they left behind? Thieves. Flower, your head is not thinking straight. Everything your fathers left in the Southwest, they got back. Every single thing. In most cases, they even got it back better than they left it. The question I should be asking you is this: all the people that Ojukwu chased out of Igbo land during the war, did they give them their stuff back? Because by 1967, in fact, it did in 66 actually, to be fair. October 66, I remember now. September, October 66, Ojukwu ejected every non-Igbo person and non-Easterner from the East. Whether you were a Northerner, a Yoruba, Bini, everybody out. If you were Igbo, but you were not from the East, maybe you were from the Midwest, he allowed you to stay. All the people that Ojukwu removed, let me ask you a question. What happened to their property? If you read Ojukwu's Rebellion and World Opinion by Graham Douglas, he mentioned that he chased them out because he was trying to create a vacuum for the Igbos that he's telling to come back home. The crazy part is that the vacuum he was creating was less than the people he was telling to return. I'm going to have that conversation. He says the RRR was a fraud. Go and say that to, what's this man's name? He's a very good man. Asika. No. Asika is the father. Is that Asika? Yes, Asika. Who rebuilt the South East Central States starting in 1968? What's his first name? Oh dear. Ukwabi. Thank you, Greater Me. Ukwabi Asika. Where did he get the money? Where did he get the money used to rebuild the Southeast? If you as a people, I mean, this is a general thing for Igbos, by the way. So it's not, I mean, if you have anybody who's not thinking this way, it will be the exception. If you as a people cannot appreciate things, you cannot grow. I mean, it's a cultural thing. Even now, I mean, talk about what's it called, Niger Bridge. They say it's nothing. I saw this news earlier today that they're upgrading, it's near Boyento Alhambra, one of those roads, right? And people are saying, no, it's not the one doing it. They'll find a way to reduce the good you are doing for them. I don't know if it makes them cope or it just keeps them in the wilderness of life. Well, that's a mindset of a conquered people, but it is well. If you like it that way, that's okay. And I'm talking specifically to the person in the comment section writing all kinds of things, but also it's a cultural thing. Like, no matter what you do, and it's the truth. No, Tinubu is trying to build one road, they're doing rail connecting to about Port Harcourt, they're doing rail, it doesn't matter. I like the fact that he's doing it though, because I mean, they are Nigerian citizens, they should have the benefit. But if it's for winning election, even now, see the comment section, they're saying that Kinecon is rubbish. How can you say it was rubbish when so here's the final question, final point before I close, because I don't want to get into that topic today. But here's the point. And see how stupid this his statement is. If you say that the reconstruction was rubbish, but you can say that Ukwabi Asika did a fantastic job, do you think you make sense? The answer is no. How can it not work when you literally credit Ukwabi Asika for rebuilding the Southeast? Where did Ukwabi Asika get the money from? Did he fall from heaven? Was it manna? He literally got the money from the government for the 3 hours. By the way, Ukwabi Asika is seated in the East. They ate him because he dared to tell them the truth. We have a video on our YouTube channel, Busuyo Oris. You can look for this video. Enough is enough. It's a speech by Ukwabi Asika. I read it out the other day. If you read that speech, you understand, it is blessed. People are blessed. Let me not say, don't worry, keep being a victim. Flower, is that your name? You see, look at the comment section. Look at the comment section. Look at the comment section. I can't say Okwabi Azeka did anything. What did he build? You don't even know him. For a person to be celebrated by these people, you have to be a victim, and you have to, which is why Obi is quite celebrated. Obi is the one that will go everywhere and say, we are going everywhere. We are more Nigerian than others. A presidential candidate talking that rubbish. We are the ones that go everywhere. We build house here. We build house here. And they don't give us kinikon. And we don't get the juicy part. They would have eaten the bones. And they'll eat the meat and give us the bones. Just listen to what I have to say. If you like, read all the books in the world. And it's like a covenant with ignorance. Okay? A covenant with victimhood. I'm not the one that was going to remove it. It's okay. But Yoruba people need to know. If a young girl can have the guts to be talking about reparations in 2026, it means that there's a new generation of people who have been taught to gaslight the rest of us. And we also have to now protect our own new generation to understand what happened and to know that Yoruba people and Nigeria owes the Igbos nothing. If you like, go and hug Transformer. Nobody owes anybody. I had reparation. I was like, in 2026, Waneze Ndigbo was asking for one ridiculous amount last year, 10 trillion naira. How much will Waneze pay people in Rivers and Bayelsa and in Akwa Ibom and in Cross River and in Delta and in Edo, in Ondo State, in Benue State, in Kogi State? These are all the states where they committed atrocities. I can mention, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Rivers, Bayelsa, Delta, Edo, Ondo, Benue, Kogi, Lagos. 10 states where Biafra forces committed the most ridiculous, killed people. This were not, of all the 10 states I just mentioned right now, only 4 were part of Biafra, or were part of the eastern region that they were trying to convert into Biafra. Only 4. But they killed people in 10 states. I'll be going everywhere, be crying like Igbiri. Oh, see what they did to me. Go shit down. Do you know what your fathers did to other people? It was a war. And guess what? We don't cry because we know that, okay, it was a war. It was unfortunate. But how come nobody ever talks about what pain your parents or your grandparents, because you guys are children, what your grandparents inflicted on other people? You don't talk about it. Just be crying all over the place. Don't worry. I'm going to come. We're going to have a session. You will hate me, Sha. I can assure you that you're going to, because I don't mind. But again, this is not done out of hate or out, from you. It's not hate. It's not trying to put anybody down. But we cannot be listening to a single narrative that paints an ethnic group as a victim of everybody and makes all of us feel as if we owe some people something. Don't owe you anything. Not as a Yoruba person. Not as a Nigerian. Nigerians need to know this. There will not be, my children are not going to be feeling bad about what people went through and say, okay, because we went through something, give us something. You didn't go through anything that warrants anybody to give you any leverage in 2026. What people went through was terrible, but Nigeria did what Nigeria could do to pay back. And was it enough? Of course, it was not enough. Could things have been done then? Yes. Should they be done now? No. Why? Because, listen, it was a war. The things that happened to Yoruba people during that war, who did anything for us? Most of the folks who were fighting on the Nigerian side, people in 3MCDO, 3rd Marine Commando Division, were they not Yoruba people? What did Biafra do to take care of them? Oh, we'll have this session. We will have the conversation. Love everybody, respect them, but nobody can gaslight anybody in this country and say, oh, see what they did to me. See what you did to others. As soon as you mention that, that's when they begin to throw tantrums. Oh, we are saints. We never did anything. No, we just come and sit down. We'll talk about, all of us should be blessed. But may God bless all of us. But if people want to be asking for Keniko, let them dip their hands in their pocket. The girl was actually quoting, he was saying Holocaust, Germany and Jews. I was like, did the Jews declare a state inside Germany? Olatunji, very good question. What about the federal troops POW? Oh God. What you just asked right now is actually a very, very sad thing. It's a very sad thing. Do you know when Nigerians took this clown, his grandparents, the clown in the comment section, when Nigerians took the grandparents as POWs, they were still doing all this good people, great nation, took care of them, fed them, had a conversation with them, and said, okay, about 400 of them, out of the 400, and you find this in the book by Godwin Labi Sama, out of 400 of them, only 20, after they have a conversation with Benjamin Adekunle, like, listen, there are 3 options. You find this in the book by Alabi Sama. There are 3 options. Number 1, you can fly them to Lagos, right? But then planes were only coming once a week, and they were bringing food. How many times would the plane have to go to? Would the plane have to go to the south, right, and then return to Lagos? How many times will they have to return and go to carry 400 people? The other option was to kill them. The third option was to let them. Of course, they couldn't let them go because it's as if you're swelling the ranks of the Biafran forces. So Benjamin definitely had this fantastic idea that they could recruit them. I had a conversation with them, 400, and he said, this is where we are. We can work with you. Ojoku lied to you. We don't hate you. We're not trying to kill you. Out of the 400, only 20 said they were going to go back home because they had those parents. 20 out of 400. The remaining 380 were absorbed into the Nigerian. These were the people that these people are always calling demonical. Meanwhile, the POWs on the side of Biafra, most of whom were Yoruba, were horribly treated. No food. You will not be the ones who be crying like, oh, see what they did to me. See, there are some things you will read. Some people just talk, you feel like cursing them out. You have to hold yourself back because, we're children of God. What's your name? I don't want to even call your name. When we have the time, I will have the conversation. Feel free to come up if you like. Just know that every single thing you say, there will be a book I'll read. And when I read it, you'll be angry. And when you're angry, the only option you have is transformer. You just hug it because is either I do that or I curse you out, and I cannot curse people out. You people are retarded. Like you have this most stupid arguments. Oh, see what they did to. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Going everywhere, wrecking havoc. These guys, would you believe I told you that these guys were killing people in Benue before the war even started on July 6, 1967? What were you looking for in Benue? To kill people and there was no war? No, we should have this conversation about what really happened. And Igbos that want to hear it will find healing, hopefully. But to be honest, my primary audience is Nigerians. This is Yoruba, they're Nigerians. You've got to be armed with the truth. What it does for you is not to hate others. You love people. You understand the predicament. They went through terrible stuff, right? It was terrible, and you can acknowledge that. But you're not going to allow anybody to now make it look as if it's your fault that their fathers miscalculated and went to kill others. Here's the crazy part, right? The person who is actually responsible ran away, returns 12 years later, joins the North, and you're calling him a hero. But Awo is your villain. Anyway, we got into all of this because somebody raised the issue of the book written by Gowon that was just released. We're going to get that book. But even before the book, I was already going to respond to one video. I hope I've not even done all the responses yet. No, I haven't, because I'll be reading books to respond to that lady, trying to gaslight the rest of the country. You guys, you will learn history. You say you should learn history, you will learn history. We all learn history. We love each other, but nobody will gaslight any. As a Yoruba person, no. No, you. If I will say it a billion times, if I have to, no Yoruba person owes any Nigerian anything but love and respect. Saying somebody did something to you, no, you're not serious. May God bless and stop being a victim. And if you like, in fact, if you like, stop being a victim. If you don't like, that's your problem. But every Yoruba person should know these things. Again, you show compassion. You know, I see what we went through. Yeah, my show. Sorry about that. You know, but it's not my fault. Oju could have tried everything. You are calling him Buru. It is the person who now protected the entire country you are eating. Hey, Tim Onkoko. Everybody will be all right. All right. By the way, you know, we're going to get the book by Gowon. Like I said earlier, I think he was a fantastic man. He did his best, and may have made mistakes, but again, many of us here, most of us here, I'm sure, looking at the analytics, many of us here are older than Gowon at the time, and we still know that we still make mistakes even at whatever age we are. So he was a young man. He made mistakes. That's okay. But he did his best, and it's important to also be, you know, gracious to him. If we can be gracious to Ojuku, we should be gracious to him. Okay. Your might says I will. No, I'm going to talk about this some other day. Your might says I will encourage Senator Okowa to ensure that Anyoma State is created for South South. Ned Igbo agenda has kicked out of National Assembly. He can go to Enugu to create another state. Did you see what happened with Ned? Oh no, it's not today's topic. Did you see what happened with Ned? 3 people voted for Ned during the primaries. 3. Ha. Most or no, the guy was talking about how they're going to create a new state and then they will now attach it to the Southeast. The people said no. He said yes. They said no. He said yes. The Southeast was saying no. The Southeast was saying yes. His own constituency were saying no. The guy was still pushing. 3 people voted in. I know people are angry. You know, I said it, they came for me one time and said, oh, Yoruba person is getting involved. They are shown now that how on earth would you want Anyoma State and you want it to be attached to the South-South? To the Southeast? And they said no. And the only people that were saying, good job, were Igbo people in the Southeast. You should go and create the clinic for them now. Everybody will be all right. Share is politics. We'll all be right. God bless Senator Ned Nwoko. I'm sure he has other things he'll be getting involved in. I mean, he's a busy man. Looks to me like he's a busy man. So may God bless him. Enigma says, I hope our Yoruba people will learn from the people of Anyoma. We'll have that conversation maybe tomorrow. I'll try if we can make it tomorrow, if not Thursday. But I like to have these sessions every day regardless. And I'm glad we have, even if it's just audio. It looks like the audio is not even just because it has as much impact as the videos. The only thing is that we can't really cut out of it and post online. But regardless, I'm still glad we're able to have these conversations. We're going to talk about this Netwoko thing. And I hope your Bible also, like you said, your Bible have to learn from it. Let nobody gaslight you with any those animal people. My respect for them just went up. 3 people. Jesus is Lord. And you know the funny thing about, sorry guys, I'm a bit excited. You know the funny thing about this new electoral laws? The man can't go to any other political party. He can't. He can't say, oh, I want to run another platform. He can't. Ẹ jẹ́ a gbọ́ orin àkọ́jáde nínú ìwé orin Nigerian. We're going to listen to Nigerian anthem and Yoruba anthem. Before we do that, let me thank everybody who has been part of this session on all platforms, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Twitch. Thank you very much for being part of this session. Thanks for the likes. 154.7k likes on TikTok. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for engaging. Yes, I've read the comments a lot because I want to make sure that I also, hear your thoughts. I do that because it's easier and it's faster. We're going to have people come up tomorrow, I promise. Thank you very much for your being part of today's session. Thanks for everything written in the comment section. And I hope I read everything. I think I read as much as I could. But I really appreciate your presence. We'll have this session again. Or we'll have another session, I should say, tomorrow time. and we will have a great time together discussing things that have to do with Nigeria, with Yoruba, with politics, history, culture, and innovation. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. Before we go, we are going to listen to our anthems. It will be the Nigerian national anthem and the Yoruba anthem. Okay. And if you know the lyrics, please sing along. If not, this is 2026. Everybody should know the lyrics by now. Okay, so please sing along. Thank you very much.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace all battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hand unto our children a banner without stain. Oh God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation when no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. Nigeria may be Iṣẹ́ wa mẹ́wàá fún ilẹ̀-èdè wa. Tàgbéga, tàgbéga, tàgbéga fáyé rí. Ìgbàgbọ́ wa ni pé bá ti bẹ̀rù làbọ̀ mọ́. Ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́ ká jọlá. Iṣẹ́ ni ẹ jẹ́ ká máa lépa. Tẹ̀síwájú fọ̀pọ̀ ire àtòhun tó dára. Ọmọ ògbàlódé bọ́ sípò ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ̀. Ìwọ ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀.
Àwa ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀, ìmọ́lẹ̀ wọ̀ ní wọ́kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́, Nàìjíríà náà ò ní bàjẹ́, ilé ìwọ̀ ọ̀nà wọ̀ ò ní bàjẹ́ o. Thank you very much for being part of today's session, and amen to your prayers. Mr. Babatunde, thank you so much, sir. God bless you. God bless everyone. God bless Yoruba land. God bless Nigeria and every part of it. We're going to have another session tomorrow at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. And like I said, we're going to be talking about two very soon. We'll put on the forms in June. and I'll be talking more about it, on a daily basis. Well, thank you very much for being part of today's session. I'll see you again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. To have a lovely, lovely evening. Odaro, Eshem.